Good morning, everyone. So, on Friday, you guys started working on rewriting formulas, and this is the answer key to that assignment. Now, I'm giving you the answer key because so far it looks like you guys are doing okay. There are one or two that you are still having issues on. So, what I want you to do is check your answers. Now, watch that. Even if you have maybe like one of the secondary answers, so for instance, number 4, where if b is equal to c minus ax, you might have written b is equal to a negative ax plus c. Now these are equivalent, they are the same thing. Just watch out if you wrote it the secondary way that you keep the negative with the correct value. If your negative has moved, so for instance, if you wrote b is equal to ax minus c, that answer is wrong. So here's what you are going to do. You're going to very carefully check all of your answers, and you're going to make sure that those negatives are in the right spot. You're going to make sure that you have the right numbers on top when you have division. And after you're done checking, so once you've finished your check, what I want you to do is I want you to redo wrong problems. And when you do this, it should be on a fresh piece of paper. And with this, you are going to resubmit that underneath today's assignment. So you're going to turn in your revisions underneath today's. Now, if you're like, but Ms. Prinz, I really can't figure out what I did wrong on this one. I've done it 3 or 4 times, and no matter what, I keep getting the wrong answer. Don't worry, I'm going to help you out. And I'm going to start that just by working through each of these problems in this video. Now, does that mean that you need to watch this whole video? No, I don't want to waste your time. If you already have the right answers, skip to the problems that you are struggling with. So for instance, if the only number that you got wrong was number 7, skip down to number 7. And it's okay to not watch any of the video at all if you got them all right, or if you were able to figure out which ones you got wrong. Like if you looked at this one and you're like, oh, I got this one wrong, but I moved the negative. So you redid the whole problem. Mind you, you do have to start from the very beginning as if you were starting this problem completely over and you didn't know the answer at all. You can go ahead and do that. You don't need my help to do it. Now keep in mind, when you're redoing these, I need to see all work. So you cannot skip any steps. You can't be like, oh, I just dropped a negative. Nope, you have to start over from the beginning. Because remember, those little mistakes are really important. And reinforcing it by doing the work the right way is very good for you, and it's good practice. So let's jump into those problems. With no further ado, here's number 3. For number 3, we want to get r by itself. That's what it means when it puts this little r over here. So let's get r by itself, and I'm going to do that by moving everything away from the r. And so that all needs to go to the other side. So since I have a subtraction by s, I'm going to add s to both sides to get r completely isolated. Notice that these s's cancel each other out. Now on this side, I can write t plus s or s plus t. It does not matter. Both would be correct. And that would be my final answer for number 3. For number 4, along the similar vein, we have ax plus b is equal to c, and it tells us that we want to solve for b. Now, not much has changed. This time, I have a larger term to move over. I want to get everything away from the b, and since I have this ax being added to the b, I can subtract the ax from both sides to cancel it out from the left side. So here I'm just left with b, and on the other side I'm left with c minus ax, or because we like to keep kind of the more complicated ones up front, negative ax plus c. And again, it doesn't matter if you wrote negative ax plus c or c minus ax, both would be correct. For number 5, we are told that we have 3y is equal to x, and we want to solve for y. Well, again, you're going to undo everything done to the y. Since y is currently being multiplied by 3, I can divide by 3 to cancel out that 3. That's going to leave me with y on the one side and x over 3 on the other side. Now remember that x over 3 can also be written as 1/3 x. And what we're doing here is we're taking the coefficient in front of the x to turn that into a fraction. And either way is acceptable. I do not mind which one you use. Going down to number 6, what we're going to be doing is a slightly longer one. We've got 2j plus 5 is equal to k, and I want to solve for j. I want to get j by itself. Now, in order to do this, I need to work backwards through order of operations. So I'm going to start by getting rid of addition and subtraction. So I'm going to move that addition of 5 over to the other side by subtracting 5 from both sides. This leaves me with 2j on the left, since the 5's have been canceled, and on the other side I have k minus 5, and again I like to keep that variable in front. Now I still need j by itself, so I am not done. Well, how can I get rid of this 2? Currently it's being multiplied. Let's divide by 2 to cancel that 2 out and move it to the other side. So this leaves me with j is equal to, well, don't forget that while it's not wrong to have something like this, it is much nicer to actually do the division. So I'm going to do that heart method right here. Now remember that there is a coefficient in front of k, a number in front of k. That number is 1. So what this really is 1/2 k, or k divided by 2. Don't lose your negative here, minus, well, 5 divided by 2, which is 2.5. And that would be my final answer. And I know it's my final answer because j is by itself, and we're done there. For our next problem, there are actually 2 different ways to solve this, and I'm going to start with the one that you guys probably used. What you most likely did is said, well, I don't like working with parentheses, so I'm going to get rid of the parentheses so that I can eventually get y by itself. Well, this is going to give us x is equal to 1/2 y plus, well, 1/2 times 4 is 2. Now I can move everything away from the y. And I can do that first by subtracting by 2, because remember, you got to get rid of that addition and subtraction first. This leaves us with 1/2 y on the right, and on the left I have x minus 2. Now this is something that might have thrown you off. You have 1/2 times y. Now when you are doing this, a lot of you guys might say, let's divide by 1/2. That's not technically wrong. However, division by 1/2 is a really messy thing. We really hate to divide by a fraction 1/2, right? So instead of dividing by a fraction, don't forget that you can always multiply by its reciprocal. So its reciprocal is 2/1, or just 2. So instead of dividing by a fraction, we're going to multiply by its reciprocal, 2. Now be careful when you do this, you need to multiply the entirety of the other side by 2. Which means we will need to distribute. So this gives us 2x minus 4 when I do the 2 times the x and the 2 times the negative 2. That does give me y by itself, and I would be finished. Now, just because we did it this way does not mean you couldn't have gotten to the right answer with a different method, and I want you to check out that method as well. So let's say I started with the original problem. X equals 1/2, parentheses, y plus 4, end parentheses. Now don't forget that when you're looking at problems like these, your goal when you're trying to isolate y is to move everything away. And you can use the order of operations in reverse in order to do this. In other words, you're going to undo these in the reverse order that you normally do them. Now normally I'd start inside the parentheses to simplify and then multiply by 1/2. So if I'm working backwards, I'm actually going to get rid of that multiplication by 1/2 first, right? And then I can take care of what's inside the parentheses afterwards. In other words, since I don't have addition and subtraction outside the parentheses, I'm getting rid of multiplication and division first. Now again, like what we did above, instead of dividing by 1/2, I'm going to multiply by 2. And that multiplication by 2 cancels out the 1/2 because those two are reciprocals of each other. So this gives me 2x on the left, and on the right I'm left with my parentheses, which is y plus 4. Now since there's just parentheses here, they actually are not necessary, so I really have 2x is equal to y plus 4. And I've taken care of all of my multiplication and division, and what I'm really working on is my grouping symbol. So I can get rid of that grouping symbol, which I've just done, and that means I can get rid of whatever is left. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from both sides to get that y by itself, because remember my goal here is still to get y by itself. Subtracting 4 from both sides isolates that y, since these two 4's cancel, and that leaves me with 2x minus 4 on the left side and y on the right. So I'm left with y is equal to 2x minus 4, and that would be my final answer. So notice either of these methods is completely valid. It depends on which one makes more sense to you as to which one you're going to use. Let's keep going though with number 8. Just like number 7, this problem can be done 2 ways, and I will show you both of them. Let's start with the distribution one. So you can start by getting rid of parentheses when you're trying to get that s by itself. This is going to give us 6s minus, well, 6 minus 1 is 6, or 6 times a negative 1 is 6. So we have 6x minus 6 is equal to t. Here, I'm going to undo order of operations, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides, getting rid of my addition and subtraction first. This gives me 6s is equal to t plus s. Now I can divide both sides by 6, and don't forget there is a coefficient in front of that t, and that is a 1. And while this is not necessarily a wrong answer, remember that we like to actually do that division by using that heart method. Here we have 1t divided by 6, which is 1/6t. We're going to add to that, because there's a plus sign here, 6 divided by 6, which is 1. Remember, you always use the heart method when there's that addition or subtraction sign between terms in a fraction. Now this would be our final answer. 6 is equal, or s is equal to 1/6t plus 1. But don't forget, there's an alternative version. You could also solve this using order of operations in a different way. Instead of distributing the 6, you can say, well, since normally I would do parentheses first and multiplication second, if I'm trying to undo what I normally do, I can divide by 6 first and then get rid of my parentheses. Well, this is going to give us, well, don't forget there's a 1 in front of that t, 1/6t is equal to, well, on this side the 6's have canceled, and this is okay, I don't need to do the heart method, because notice that outside the parentheses I only have multiplication, so I've just canceled out that multiplication. And that gives me s minus 1 on the left. Here, that parenthesis doesn't really do anything, so I've gotten rid of the parentheses, and I can add 1 to both sides. This leaves me with s, because the 1's have canceled on the left, and on the right I have 1/6t plus 1. And again, we have the same answer, just in a slightly different way. For the next problem, number 13, we know that the area of a rectangle is equal to its length times its width, and we want to find its width, so we're going to solve for w. Now that means you start with the original formula, a is equal to L times w, and let's then try to get the w by itself. In order to do this, I need to get rid of the other things on the same side as the w, and since I have multiplication, I'm going to get rid of L by division. So I'm going to divide both sides by L. This leaves us with A over L is equal to W, and I would be done. Now you might go, Ms. Prinz, why on earth would you ever want to do this? And this is actually something that I did a lot when I was working in construction, because what we would want is we'd a lot of times be given like an area and a length, but I'd always want to know the width. So in order to save myself some time, I'd rewrite a formula so I wouldn't have to solve the equation kind of messily every time. And that's what B is really saying. B is saying, find W when A equals 36 and L equals 9. Well, I could put it into the original formula and solve, but since I know that W is equal to A over L, all I really need to do is take my A value of 36, divide it by my L value of 9, and I know that has to be the width because width is equal to A over L, or 36 over 9. And that gives me a value of 4. And I don't know what the units are, so I'm just going to write units after it. And that is it. Make sure that you show all your work and your corrections, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.